How many of you have ever been on vacation? Yeah, I knew it was going to have that extra bit. Right, how many of you have ever been on vacation? Now, going on vacation can be a very pleasurable experience, as long as you know where you're going and what to expect when you get there. But not everybody does. Travel agents have told stories about people who misunderstood those things. One agent said, I had someone ask for an aisle seat on their airplane so that their hair wouldn't get messed up by being near the window. Another said he had a client who called inquiring about a package to Hawaii. After going over all the cost information, she asked, well, wouldn't it be cheaper if I fly to California than take a train to Hawaii? Still another agent had got a call from a woman who said that she wanted to go to Cape Town. He started to explain the length of the flight to Africa and the passport information, when she interrupted saying, I'm not trying to make you look stupid, but Cape Town is in Massachusetts. He explained, no, Cape Cod is in Massachusetts. Cape Town is in South Africa. And she hung up. One man called his travel agent furious about the Florida package that they'd done for him. The agent asked, what was wrong with the vacation to Orlando? The man responded that he was expecting an ocean view room. The agent tried to explain that that wasn't possible. Orlando is in the middle of the state. The man replied, don't lie to me. I looked on the map and Florida is a very dense state. A very nice lady called her agent. She wanted to know how it was possible that her flight from Detroit left at 8:20 a.m. and got into Chicago at 8:33 a.m. The agent tried to tell her that Michigan was an hour ahead of Illinois, but she just could not grasp the concept of the time zone. Finally, he just told her the plane went very fast. She bought it. Then there was the businessman that called and had questions about the documents that he needed in order to fly to China. After a lengthy discussion about passports, the agent reminded him that he needed a visa. Oh, no, I don't. I've been to China many times, and I never had to have one of those. The agent double-checked, and sure enough, he told the businessman his state needed a visa. The businessman scoffed. Look, I have been to China 4 times, and every time I've been there, they accepted my American Express card. My point is this: a vacation can be very pleasurable as long as you know where you're going and what to expect when you get there. These folks didn't. And so they ended up getting frustrated. In our text this morning, Peter reminds us that we are strangers in this world. We don't belong here. This is not our home. We were reborn to live somewhere else. And if we don't remember that, we can get truly frustrated in this life. Jesus told us in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble. And here Peter tells the Christians that he's writing to the same thing. For a little while, you'll have to suffer various trials. Peter acknowledges the pain, but then he explains why we should rejoice about that. He writes in 1 Peter 1, 6 and 7, "In this you rejoice, even if now, for a little while, you had to suffer various trials, so that the genuineness of your faith, being more precious than gold that though perishable is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." In other words, even our present difficulties in this life has value for us. And the reason they have value for us is because we have so much else going for us. Notice in these opening verses, all the things Peter say we have as Christians. We are the elect. God has chosen us out of this world to be His people. We have been sanctified by the Spirit, set apart from the world. We have been saved by being sprinkled with the blood of Jesus. We have been born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Christ. We have been inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfaded, kept in heaven for us. We are guarded by God's power, or for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. We got so much going on for us that it should make us want to stand up and shake like we've been changed. It's like the song by Mercy Me says, maybe he came to you when everything seemed fine, or maybe your world was upside down and hit you right between the eyes. No matter when it happened, at 7 or 95, move your feet, because you are free and you've never been more alive. And then the chorus says, you've got to shake, 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 like you change, change, change. Brand new looks so good on you, so shake like you've been changed. That's what Peter is saying to the Christians in his day. Shake like you've been changed. Walk and run and dance, because you've been given something the rest of the world doesn't have. Put a spring into your step, because you've got grace and peace and mercy and hope. And the reason we can walk like that is because we don't belong here. We got a citizenship in heaven. Pastor Jeff Stride told of a time when he was in the Purdue Glee Club. They went over to Europe. It was still during the last days of the Cold War, and the Berlin Wall was still up. At one point, they crossed over to East Germany, and armed guards boarded their bus and sternly warned them, under no uncertain terms, they were not to take any pictures of the guard post as their bus made its way into communist Germany. So guess what they did? They took pictures. Now, why on earth would they do that? Well, these are his words, because they were idiots. These were communist soldiers armed with submachine guns. At the very least, they could have created an international incident. But they didn't care. They were Americans. They were a free people for one of the most powerful nations on earth. And no communist thug was going to tell them what to do. They weren't about to stand for it. There was no threat they could make that would rob them of that. And Peter is telling us the same thing. You and I are Christians. We are a free people. We are part of the most powerful kingdom on the face of the earth. And there's nothing in this world that they can threaten us with or can rob us of the blessing of that freedom. So Peter tells us, shape like you're changed, because you are free people. Walk like it, talk like it, act like those who have been chosen and sanctified and saved and born again to a living hope. Don't let the forces of sin cow you into silence and conformity. You've got something the rest of the world does not. You've got something to offer that many of your friends do not have. It's like vacationing in a foreign land. You live right now in one of the richest nations on earth. And you have advantages locals in many foreign lands you might visit don't have. And what advantages as Christians do we have? For one thing, we got the power to start our lives over again, to begin anew. Peter writes, for you are receiving the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your soul. The goal of Christ's living in us is to give us the ability to experience God's forgiveness. The people of this world rarely have the ability to experience forgiveness. They don't have the resources to remake and renew their lives. Once a year, we have a celebration where everybody stays up till midnight. What's it called? New Year's Eve. It's a celebration that is the focus of almost every nation on the face of this earth. It does not matter if you're vacationing in New York, Tel Aviv, or Tokyo. Seemingly everybody everywhere celebrates New Year's Eve. It's a celebration that symbolizes the starting their lives over again. And what tool do people use to try to remake their lives? Resolutions. Seemingly everybody makes New Year's resolutions. Resolutions they believe will change their lives for the better. But do they? Do those resolutions actually change people? Sometimes, but most of the times, no. It's a recognized truth that most people's resolutions never last more than a month. They just don't seem to work. Why not? Why don't those resolutions work? Because the success of a resolution depends upon our willpower. And it's our lack of willpower that got us into the messes that we want to try to change. But Peter tells us that change in our lives don't depend on your willpower. No, you and I have received a new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. God tells us our ability to change our lives come about because God works inside of us. It's a change that doesn't come about because we made a promise or a pledge, but because God has made a promise, a living promise, embodied in the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And the problem with most resolutions is that folks believe that their peace of mind will come from something God says won't work. They believe that if they can just be more popular, more successful, more intelligent, have more leisure time, more possessions, more money, then they could be truly happy. But it never seems to work. Ecclesiastes says all of those things end up being empty and vain. A preacher named Rick Stacy tells the story of the man he once met. This man was the manager for the House of David greenhouses in St. Joseph, Michigan. He had been raised by the members of a religious cult as a child, and now he was the manager of one of their businesses. He says, my friend knew the religion and business well, but he didn't know Jesus. One night, about 10, he called me and asked if Ecclesiastes was true when it said that everything in this world was empty and vain. Because if it is, he might as well just kill himself and be done with life. I explained that Solomon had discovered that the accumulation of wealth does not satisfy. That it was like trying to catch the wind. I also told him that Solomon also discovered that it was the whole duty of man to serve God always. Ecclesiastes 12:13. I went to his home that night and told him about Jesus. And that same night, about 11:30, I baptized him in his swimming pool. So, we are a free people. A people who are blessed with advantages this world does not have. And because our best blessings are in heaven, we have one more advantage over the world. That advantage, we do not have to fear death. We have an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you. There is a book by a historian named Rodney Starr. He wrote the book called Triumph of Christianity, How the Jesus Movement Became the World's Largest Religion. He explained that in ancient Rome, the pagans had two philosophies that were very different than Christianity. One, the Romans feared death. They believed the grave either led to non-existence or at best to a drab existence in a shadowy underworld. So they literally ran from death and clung to life for all that it was worth. Second, the Romans viewed mercy and pity as things to be scoffed and looked down upon. The philosophers of the days taught that mercy was unreasonable and that the cries of the undeserving for mercy must be unanswered. 165 AD, something happened to change that. A plague struck the Roman Empire. Now, when the plague came to town, those who could left town. Those who couldn't get out of town did everything they could to avoid the sickness. When their first symptoms appeared, victims often were thrown into the streets where the dead and dying laid in piles. Even physicians, like the famous Roman doctor named Gerald, simply ran away. Everybody seemed to run away, but the Christians didn't. They cared for their own sick, and for many of the sick of their own neighbors. But why would they do that? First, Jesus had taught them that mercy was the highest form of godliness. And second, they didn't fear death. They had an inheritance kept in heaven that wouldn't perish, spoil, or fade. They believed that if they died while caring for the ills, the result for them would be glorious. And so they were able to overcome their fears. In those days, the ancient world lacked antibiotics and other effective medicines. So what did the Christians give to the sick? The very basic things of life: food, water, and compassion. And because the Christians of that day refused to fear death when helping the sick, they not only kept a vast number of fellow Christians and others from dying, but they caught the attention of the rest of the culture. They literally shook the Roman world because of their self-sacrifice. You see, Christianity isn't just about shaking like we were changed. It's about shaking the world. It's about displaying the love of Jesus in our lives in such a way that the world around us becomes jealous of our love for Him and becomes hungry and thirsty to have Him in their lives as well. Now, my last point is this. This world is not our home. Maybe you know the old spiritual. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. This world is not my home. We should live, like it's just a place where we're visiting. Now, me and Michelle, we used to take the kids on vacation. And you know what I would always say when that vacation was over? I'm glad to get home. This world is not my home, but we are just passing through. I can't feel at home in this world anymore because this world is not my home. It's only a short time here compared to the eternity in our true home, heaven. That's one of the beauties of what God has explained to us. The grave will not hold us. One day we'll hear the voice of the angel and the trumpet call of God, and we will rise from the grave to meet Jesus. We'll be going home. That's the promise that we had ever since we became Christians. That is the promise that was declared to us in our baptism. And that act God declared to you that one day you will rise from the grave to meet Jesus. This world is not our home. Our present life is like a vacation in that sense. It's a short time for us to be here while we are away from home. And when people get home from their vacations, they share their memories. They show the pictures they've taken to friends and relatives. They post them on their computer and Facebook. It's almost like the most important part of their vacation was the memories that they hope will last a lifetime. That's why people take the pictures and videos of their experiences. When you get home to heaven, what memories will you be able to share? What lives have you touched for Jesus? What people will be able to be in heaven with you because you took them to church, you introduced them to Jesus, or showed them the love and mercy that God showed you. May you grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.